Have you ever wondered why you wake up tired even after a full night's sleep? Why your heart races not from danger, but from debt? Why each morning feels less like a beginning and more like a sentence being served? This isn't burnout. It's not just anxiety or a bad week. It's something deeper, a structural exhaustion. We are born into a world already designed, already decided. From childhood, we are taught how to be useful, not to ourselves, not to our communities, but to an invisible machine that converts our time into someone else's wealth. You graduate, find a job, follow the rules, and still feel behind. You pay your rent, your loans, your subscriptions, and it never feels like enough. Not because you're failing, but because the game was never meant to be won by you. And somewhere in that quiet agony, most give up the question entirely. Why is it this way? That question, when asked sincerely, is dangerous. It leads you to forbidden territory, to a book written over 150 years ago that still echoes through every unpaid hour, every empty fridge, every sleepless night. The book is called Capital by Karl Marx. And for those in power, it was never just a book. It was a mirror they didn't want you to find, because inside its pages is not just theory, but exposure, the hidden mechanics of exploitation, the quiet theft behind every paycheck, the reason you can work 40, 50, 60 hours a week and still feel poor. Capital is not a guide. It's an autopsy. It shows you the corpse of a system that feeds on life, but gives none. It names what we feel but can't explain: alienation. A disconnection so deep that we mistake it for our own failure. Imagine a man drowning in overdue bills with a phone full of motivational quotes. That's what capitalism gives us: suffering, packaged as self-improvement. You don't need more discipline. You need to understand what's disciplining you. Capital does this. It rips off the mask of freedom and shows the factory underneath. It speaks not in algorithms or hacks, but in truths carved from lived experience. And that is why capitalists never wanted you to read it. Because once you see the system, you can't unsee it. Once you name your chains, they start to rattle. This video is not about reading Marx. It's about why you were never meant to, and what happens if you dare. Time. They say it's the most precious resource. But in this system, it's not just precious, it's profitable. Your time is bought, sold, scheduled, optimized. You clock in, you clock out. But somewhere in between, you lose something you can't get back: yourself. Capitalism doesn't just want your labor it wants your life in fragments. It slices your day into sellable portions, and it tells you, you're free. You can choose how to sell your time. But that's not freedom. That's coercion in costume. Ask yourself, when was the last time your time truly felt like yours? Not just after work, not in a 15-minute break, but truly yours, unmonetized, unsponsored, unsupervised. The war for your time is silent. It doesn't come with tanks or bombs. It comes with alarms, deadlines, to-do lists, unpaid overtime. It comes with the slow erosion of your weekends until rest becomes guilt and stillness feels like failure. In Capital, Marx calls this the commodification of labor power. He shows how your capacity to work, your energy, creativity, attention, is treated not as a human gift, but as a raw material to be extracted, exploited, and discarded. And who wins in this invisible war? Not you. You earn just enough to return tomorrow. But the surplus, the extra value created by your labor, is siphoned upward. This is not a bug. It's the blueprint. You are the engine, but someone else holds the keys. Imagine a factory that runs on hope, but exports despair. Imagine a clock that doesn't measure time, but obedience. That's what we live inside. The longer you work, the less you live. But capitalism calls it progress. It celebrates the grind, the hustle, while ignoring the quiet deaths behind every deadline. Missed birthdays, broken relationships, mental breakdowns. They tell you to manage your time. But maybe it's time to manage who is managing you, because every hour you sell is a story you don't write, a song you don't sing, a silence you don't hear. And the cruelest part? They've convinced you that it's your fault, that if you're tired, poor, or unfulfilled, you just need to try harder. But Marx whispers from the past, the worker becomes all the poorer the more wealth he produces. This is not about laziness, it's about systemic theft, of time, of energy, of soul, and it's happening every single day. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself not just what you're doing, but who you're doing it for. Because in the war for your time, awareness is the first act of resistance. They told you that you're free, free to choose your job, free to buy what you want, free to chase your dreams. But ask yourself this, if you're free, why does it feel like you're running on a treadmill you never asked to step on? Freedom under capitalism is a theater. You walk the stage, repeat your lines, and believe the script was written by you. But the set was built before you were born. The roles were cast. The lights, the rules, the outcomes already decided. You are free to choose between jobs, but not free from the need to sell your labor to survive. You are free to buy whatever you want, but only with the money you earn from selling pieces of yourself. You are free to speak, but not free from the power structures that decide who gets heard. This is what Marx warned us about. The production of too many useful things results in too many useless people. Not because people are without value, but because value is only measured by profit. And if you don't generate profit, your freedom is an inconvenience. Your life, an overhead cost. You think you're choosing, but you're selecting from a menu someone else wrote. You think you're independent, but you're deeply entangled in invisible systems. Debt, rent, wages, brands, screens. Imagine a bird born inside a cage so vast, it mistakes the bars for the horizon. That's what freedom feels like in capitalism. They give you credit cards and call it empowerment. They give you endless choices and call it autonomy. But they never give you real power, power to shape the structure, not just survive within it. True freedom isn't choosing which master to serve. It's the absence of masters altogether. But that kind of freedom is dangerous. It questions ownership. It challenges hierarchy. It asks why wealth is concentrated in the hands of so few, while the rest live paycheck to paycheck, calling it independence. You are not lazy. You are surviving a system designed to make you feel free, while extracting your energy in silence. Capitalism doesn't want citizens, it wants consumers, not thinkers, but workers who obey and buy. So the next time someone tells you, if you don't like your job, just get a new one. Remember, that's not freedom. That's rotation within a cage. And cages, no matter how pretty, are still prisons. Everything is easier now. Groceries delivered, music streamed, rides summoned with a tap. Convenience is the promise of modern capitalism. Fast, smooth, frictionless. But underneath the surface of speed, something slower is dying. Connection, meaning, wholeness. We live in an age where everything is accessible except ourselves. Marx called it alienation, not as a feeling, but as a condition, a fracture between who we are, what we do, and what we create. You build someone else's dream for 8 hours a day, then stare at a screen for 6 more to forget the emptiness. You touch more buttons than people. You know your passwords better than your passions. Alienation means you no longer see yourself in your work. You press keys, answer emails, move numbers, but you don't see the outcome. You don't feel part of a process. You are a cog in a machine so vast you can't even hear the engine anymore. Marx described 4 dimensions of alienation: from the product, from the process, from others, and from yourself. In today's world, all 4 are monetized. You don't own what you make. You have no control over how you make it. Your co-workers are competitors. And your true self, the curious, creative, rebellious self, is buried beneath performance metrics and LinkedIn profiles. We tell ourselves we're connected. But connection through screens is a simulation. It gives the appearance of togetherness without the risks of real intimacy. We have never been more digitally linked and never more emotionally divided. Alienation today isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, subtle. A numbness that creeps into your mornings, a hollowness in your conversations, a sense that something is off, but you can't name it. You're not broken. You're reacting, truthfully, to a system that separates people from purpose. And here lies the genius of modern capitalism. It sells you the cure for the disease it created. Meditation apps for anxiety, streaming platforms for loneliness, productivity tools for burnout. But these are bandages, not solutions. Because the root of the wound isn't inside you, it's around you. Imagine a worker in a factory of mirrors. He builds reflections of happiness he'll never feel. Each mirror shows a smiling life, but none show him. That's alienation. And it is not your fault. You were not meant to be a machine. You were meant to create, connect, feel, grow. Marx didn't just write about alienation to describe suffering. He wrote about it to awaken the need for transformation, because to name the fracture is the first step to healing. And maybe you've felt it too. That quiet ache, that silent question. Is this all there is? No, it isn't. You walk into a store and see a new phone, sleek, glowing, almost sacred. You touch its surface like it holds some kind of promise. Faster, better, smarter, a portal to a better life. But do you ever wonder what you're actually buying? Marx called it commodity fetishism. Not a desire for objects, but a system where objects gain a life of their own, where things seem to have power, while the people who made them remain invisible. When you buy a shirt, you don't see the hands that stitched it. Hands tired, underpaid, exploited. When you scroll through your phone, you don't hear the screams from cobalt mines in Congo or the sighs of underpaid assembly line workers in Shenzhen. Capitalism hides the human. It erases labor from the product. You see the logo, the price, the prestige, but not the pain. In this world, objects are animated, while humans are dehumanized. You are taught to desire symbols, not meaning. To chase brands, not connection. They sell you identity in boxes, belonging in subscriptions, confidence in cologne, and you believe for a moment that buying will make the ache go away. But it doesn't. Because what you really crave is not in the thing. It's in the human bond the thing replaced. We buy to feel seen. We buy to feel control. We buy to fill a space that consumption can never satisfy. And yet the more we consume, the emptier we feel. A closet full of clothes you don't wear. A phone full of apps you don't use. A mind full of noise you didn't choose. This isn't a malfunction, it's the model. Because capitalism doesn't want you fulfilled. A fulfilled person doesn't keep spending, so it manufactures longing. It turns desire into debt. It sells you dreams that quietly drain your soul. Marx wrote, "A commodity appears at first sight as a trivial thing, but it is in reality a very queer thing, full of metaphysical subtleties." He saw it clearly. In a capitalist world, we worship objects like gods and forget the people behind them. Imagine a world where every product came with a face, the face of the person who made it. Would you still want it? Fetishism blinds us to the true cost of things. Not just in dollars, but in dignity, in life, in time. But once you learn to see the hidden fingerprints beneath every object, you can never unsee them. And maybe that's the beginning of real value. Not in owning more, but in understanding what you already have. Because things can't love you. Things can't hold you. Things can't save you. Only people can. They told you, work hard and you'll succeed. Be disciplined and you'll rise. Play by the rules and the system will reward you. But what happens when the rules are rigged? What happens when the ladder they told you to climb is missing half its rungs? Meritocracy, the idea that success is based on talent and effort, sounds noble, fair, even moral. But it's a myth, a comforting lie whispered to keep you striving, even as the game moves further out of reach. Look around. Do you really believe the richest people in the world are the smartest, the hardest working, the most moral? Or are they simply the most connected, the most inherited, the most protected by a system built for them? In capitalism, merit isn't about worth. It's about market value. And market value is deeply entangled with race, class, gender, geography. A poor child born in a broken school district has to leap over barriers that a rich child never even sees. But when that poor child fails to break free, we don't question the system. We blame the individual. You should have tried harder. You should have made better choices. But what choice do you have when every path forward requires capital you don't have? Marx didn't talk about merit the way we do today, but he exposed its function, a mask to hide class domination. The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. And one of the most powerful ideas they ever sold us is that we deserve our position. Success becomes proof of virtue. Poverty becomes evidence of failure. But it's not that simple. It never was. Imagine two people running a race. One starts on the track. The other starts 5 miles behind, carrying weights. Who wins? Who's better? That's meritocracy under capitalism. And when you finally collapse from exhaustion, they'll call you lazy. This myth is not just unfair, it's violent. It erases the systemic barriers that shape our lives. It turns inequality into personal shame. And worst of all, it makes us turn on each other, instead of the system that exploits us all. You don't fail in capitalism. Capitalism fails you, then convinces you it was your fault. But once you understand the game is rigged, you stop blaming yourself. You start asking real questions. Not how can I win, but why must I compete at all? Not how can I climb the ladder, but why does the ladder exist? Because liberation doesn't come from reaching the top. It comes from burning down the lie that the top means anything at all. You turn on the TV, you scroll through your feed, you watch, you listen, you absorb. And slowly, quietly, something begins to happen. Your thoughts are no longer entirely your own. Marx understood this. He wrote, "The ruling ideas of each age have ever been the ideas of its ruling class. Today, those ruling ideas are broadcast through a trillion-dollar media machine, not to inform you, but to shape you. What you see isn't reality. It's a curated illusion, a world designed not for truth but for compliance. News becomes spectacle. Distraction becomes currency. And consent, to your own oppression, is manufactured like a product on a shelf. You're taught who to fear, who to admire, what to desire, what to ignore. Every headline, every ad, every trending topic, it's not just information, it's ideology. The media doesn't lie by fabricating facts, it lies by framing them. A worker on strike becomes disruptive. A billionaire's tax break becomes incentive. A protest becomes a riot. A war becomes defense of freedom. Words are weapons, and in the hands of capital, they are aimed at your perception. Because if they control your mind, they don't need to control your body. They sell you the dream, so you don't question the nightmare. And they call it balance, objectivity, both sides. But there are not two equal sides when one controls the narrative and the other is silenced. They show you poverty without context, violence without history, suffering without cause. And over time, you stop asking, why is the world like this? You just accept it. This is not news. This is normalization. Imagine a mirror that reflects only what power wants you to see. Now imagine being trapped inside that mirror. That's the modern media landscape. But here's the danger they fear most. A worker who sees the world clearly. Because when you awaken, not just to facts but to structure, you become unmanageable. You start asking, who benefits from my ignorance? Who profits from my fear? Whose story is missing? And in that moment, the media machine begins to lose its grip. You don't need more news. You need a new lens, one that cuts through the fog, that reveals the mechanics, that tells you you are not crazy. You are being conditioned. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Awareness is revolution. Clarity is rebellion. And your mind, once reclaimed, is the most dangerous weapon of all. What happens when life becomes less important than the numbers on a balance sheet? In capitalism, the answer is always the same. Profit first, people second. a hospital that turns away the uninsured, a factory that poisons a river to cut costs, a corporation that lays off hundreds while rewarding its CEO. These aren't exceptions. They're expressions of the system's core logic. Because under capitalism, human beings are not sacred. They're variables in an equation. Are you productive, profitable, replaceable? If not, you're a liability, a burden, a cost to be minimized. And the cruelest part? This devaluation is wrapped in the language of efficiency, lean business, smart growth. But let's be honest. There's nothing smart about a system that lets millions go hungry while billionaires buy their third yacht. There's nothing efficient about burning the planet for quarterly gains. Profit over people is not just a slogan. It's a hierarchy of worth. It's why workers are crushed under surveillance, quotas, and burnout, while shareholders sip wine on yachts. It's why mental health is a perk, not a right. It's why disasters become opportunities for those at the top. The pandemic proved this. While nurses begged for PPE, corporations rebranded themselves as heroes and cashed in on crisis. Amazon's profits soared. Elon Musk gained billions. Meanwhile, essential workers were called resilient and offered pizza instead of protection. Because profit doesn't just exploit your labor, it exploits your suffering, and then it blames you for it. You're poor? Try harder. You're sick? Buy insurance. You're overwhelmed? Download an app. The system breaks your back, then sells you a brace. Marx saw this coming. He wrote, "Capital is dead labor which, vampire-like, lives only by sucking living labor." This isn't just poetic, it's prophetic. Profit is not neutral. It's not just a number. It's a value system, one that places margins over morality. In this system, a forest has no value until it's cut down. A teacher has no value unless they raise test scores. A life has no value unless it produces revenue. And we accept this. We internalize it. We begin to ask ourselves, am I valuable? Am I productive enough? Do I matter? But you are not a metric. You are not an asset. You are a human being, and no spreadsheet can contain your worth. Imagine a world where profit serves people, not the other way around. That world is not naive, it's necessary, and it begins with one realization. If profit requires your dehumanization, it's not worth the price. You wake up, you check your phone, you go to work. You come home too tired to think, you repeat. It feels normal, routine, expected. But what if this isn't routine? What if it's a cage, one so invisible you don't even know you're trapped? That's the brilliance of late capitalism. It doesn't need bars. It builds its prison with promises, freedom, opportunity, choice. But when your choices are confined by bills, when your dreams shrink to survival, when every passion is monetized, you are not free. You are compliant. Marx didn't just speak of chains made of iron. He spoke of ideology. A system of belief so deeply embedded that the enslaved mistake their bondage for freedom. And in today's world, the cage is made of comfort. Streaming shows, same-day shipping, 30-second dopamine hits. You are pacified, not by violence but by convenience. You are distracted, not by force but by design. This is what philosopher Herbert Marcuse called repressive tolerance. A system that lets you say anything, as long as you do nothing. You can post, you can protest, you can scream online, but the machine keeps moving. The algorithm keeps optimizing, and you keep scrolling. This is not apathy, it's exhaustion. Because deep down, you know something is wrong. You feel the cage and its pressure, its suffocation. But it's so well decorated, so socially accepted, that to question it feels insane. Everyone else is doing this, you tell yourself. Maybe I'm the problem. You're not. You were born into a world that sold you freedom and gave you dependence, that promised empowerment, but delivered exploitation in Wi-Fi packaging. Imagine a glass cage, clear, seamless, quiet. Inside, you're smiling, consuming, scrolling. Outside, there's silence, solidarity, revolution. But the glass is thick. It doesn't let the truth in, only the noise. And yet, some begin to see the smudges, the cracks, the illusions. They ask, who profits from my obedience? Why does rest feel like rebellion? What if the system isn't broken, but built to break me? These questions are dangerous. They don't just challenge power, they awaken potential, because the most powerful prisons are the ones that convince you to stay inside. And once you see the bars, you start looking for the door. They tell you the system is flawed, that it needs reform, adjustment, innovation, as if a few tweaks could turn the machine humane. But what if the system was never broken? What if it's working exactly as intended? That's the hardest truth to swallow, that your suffering is not a malfunction. It's the mechanism. Low wages, necessary, debt, essential, exhaustion, inevitable, despair, profitable. You are not failing in this system. You are doing exactly what it needs you to do, producing, consuming, surviving. Because capitalism doesn't require your happiness. It only needs your participation. You clock in, you pay rent, you buy, you scroll. That's all it asks. Your dreams, optional, your well-being, collateral damage. Marx understood this. He saw the cold logic of exploitation wrapped in the warmth of ideology. The worker sinks to the level of a commodity and becomes the most wretched of commodities. To the system, you are not a soul. You are labor power, priced by the hour. You are engagement, measured in clicks. You are data, monetized by the gigabyte. And when you are no longer useful, you are forgotten. This is not pessimism, it is clarity. Because to believe the system is broken is to hope it can be saved. But to see that it was always this way, that it was built this way, is to finally become free. It means your burnout is not your fault. Your debt is not a moral failure. Your anxiety is not a personal defect. They are symptoms of a design that values profit over people, efficiency over empathy, growth over humanity. And once you see this, you stop asking how to fix the machine and start wondering how to leave it. Imagine a world not driven by profit, but by purpose, where work dignifies, not drains, where rest is a right, not a privilege, where wealth is shared, not hoarded. That world is not utopia. It is the logical outcome of radical love and material justice. But it starts here, with the courage to see the system for what it is, and the conviction to imagine what it could be. So when they say this is just the way things are, you can finally answer, no, this is the way things have been allowed to be. And we, the tired, the used, the awake, we can build something else. Have you ever felt like something was deeply wrong but couldn't quite explain it? Like the weight on your chest wasn't just stress, but something deeper, heavier, older. Maybe now you know its name. Capital. Not just a book, but a mirror. Not just a critique, but a lantern in the dark. Karl Marx didn't offer comfort. He offered clarity. And clarity is the first act of liberation. Because once you see the system, you begin to see yourself, not as broken, but as awakening. So ask yourself, what if the life you were sold wasn't the only life possible? What if work didn't steal your joy but honored your time? What if freedom meant more than the illusion of choice? These are not just questions. They are invitations to think, to feel, to rebel. The system hopes you will forget, that you'll keep scrolling, keep buying, keep working, and without ever wondering why. But now you've read the first page, the forbidden page, and that makes you dangerous, because you can't unlearn what you now know. Marx once said, philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. And maybe, just maybe, that change begins with you.